Our story begins with our protagonist being kicked out of his job. "Mr. Han, you're no longer fit for this position." "Goodbye," says the boss. Confused, he replies, "Oh, okay." As he leaves the room, the guy says, "If we find a spot for you, we'll send you a message." The woman asks if he wants her to call a taxi for him, to which he declines. Our protagonist gets up, leaves, and sees them talking outside. The guy mentions hearing that the protagonist went to the same school as the company's owner, yet while the owner runs the company, this failure is getting fired here. Furthermore, he's been betrayed by his girlfriend. He adds, "I don't even know how Mr. Du had the guts to give this guy a position." The protagonist hangs his head. This was his last chance. Helping, caring for others, these things only make you seem kind, but in reality, following them, you became a failure. The scene cuts to him catching a subway. This is the unstoppable routine of a model citizen. Wake up, catch the metro, go to work, return exhausted. Standing on the metro, he contemplates that it would be better if everything ended soon. The train is approaching and he's thinking about ending it all. Suddenly, the lights go out. He looks around. What? A blackout. No, not quite. He realizes as the complaint system activates. Beginner package, use all your points to fulfill a wish. Our protagonist is a manga enthusiast and is familiar with the system. He just wants to know if this is real. If so, the only thing he'd wish for is to go back in time. He wants to go back to the beginning and become someone successful instead of just being a nice guy. However, when he opens his eyes, he sees a train. But this time, he's inside it and younger. Startled, he wonders, did I go back in time? He looks beside him and sees a wonderful girl. He's startled. It's Yanfei. She looks at him and asks, "Are you talking to me?" "What's up?" He says, "No, I just wanted to ask where we are." He thinks, why is the goddess of my school sitting in front of me? That's when he remembers August 30, 2013 and how he acted that day. He says, "Hey, beautiful, do you remember me?" She responds, "Yeah, we went to the same school, right?" He asks if she's also registering for college. She confirms. Our guy informs her that she's heading in the wrong direction. She asks, but isn't this train going to Jiangxing?" He sits down, adjusts his glasses, and says, "Yes, this train is going to Jiangxing. But what I mean is, you've entered my heart." She's speechless. He moves closer, showing signs of being a natural harasser. She tells him not to come closer. He replies, "Relax, this meeting is our destiny." At that moment, she shouts, "Shao gang, there's a pervert here with me." The guy arrives, telling the pervert to get lost. This is all a memory of the first time he lived this day. He grabs instant noodles thinking, "I'll just eat to calm down." The guy with Yanfei teases him, calling him poor for eating instant noodles. Our protagonist looks and thinks, this guy is as arrogant as ever. If it were the old me, I'd argue. But I'm not the same as before. He heats his noodles without caring. Just then, the consumer system activates. He sees his status window with bars for knowledge, appearance, and some other attributes. What's all this? I don't want an artifact not to invest points, he thinks. He sees the skills he had and realizes he was garbage at this time. The system hints, spend money to upgrade your skills. Our protagonist finds it strange that he has the ability to maneuver twice, but the second maneuver is about pleasuring himself. However, he's not interested in that now. He only thinks, with this system, he'll live the life he always dreamed of. He'll be an insane guy. The guy next to him asks, "Bro, have you heated your noodles?" He thinks spending money isn't the problem. The problem is having money to spend. So first he needs to figure out how he's going to make money. Returning to his seat, the guy is talking to Yanfei. "Hey babe, I'll take you somewhere fancy," he says. She prefers noodles. He tries to peek at her phone and she elbows him, saying, "Back off, mind your own business, damn it." Our protagonist laughs at him. The guy realizes this and asks if he's laughing at him. Our protagonist replies that he isn't. The guy says, "I'm her boyfriend. You can't laugh at our business." She stares at him again and says, "Just let me eat my noodles already." Our protagonist thinks this guy has always been and always will be a simp. A few minutes later, they finished their noodles. She had gone out to buy a snack and returned, but unfortunately, it was already sold out. Our protagonist pulls some chicken drumsticks out of his pocket. She asks how much they cost and says, "I'll pay for it, relax." He quotes the original price of $2.50. She says she doesn't have change and tells him to keep the 3. He says she's kind and gives her an orange as compensation for the 50 cents difference. She says he's very polite and he's already fallen for her. Her smile is enchanting. Until the simp appears and says, "I have money. If you wanted to eat, you could have just asked me to buy it instead of accepting oranges from others." She tells him not to be rude and asks why he's shouting. But the guy doesn't stop and continues, "I said I'd take you to the restaurant. Why did you buy this guy's snack?" She stands up and asks, "Do you really care about me?" Everyone on the train starts to look and she leaves. The boyfriend asks where she's going. She says she's going to the trash and doesn't want to talk to him anymore. The guy gets angry, looks at our protagonist and says, "Hey, get up," grabbing his collar and throwing him to the ground, shouting, "This is all your fault, you damn four-eyed loser." He wants to kick our boy, who's already spitting blood. He didn't expect his body to be this weak, but he won't let it slide. He gets up thinking, "I was worried about where my first income would come from. You'll be my first benefactor." The scene cuts to some time later. Yanfei is asking how he is, what happened. The doctor says, "The boy's reflex is gone. He's in a coma." "How did you fall into a coma? Are you the king of acting?" The doctor continues, his brain was severely damaged. He needs to be taken to the hospital now. Our protagonist is thinking the guy didn't hold back and it hurt a lot. "He threw me to the ground and said, 'If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been embarrassed in front of her.'" Our protagonist says that this guy only knew how to resolve everything with violence. The simp says, "What did you say? Repeat that." Our protagonist looks at him, calling him useless, and even thanks him for the conversation he had with his girlfriend. With that, he takes another punch, and at that moment, everyone on the train tries to hold the simp back, telling him to stop. But the guy doesn't stop punching our boy. Just then, the waifu appears and asks what he's doing. Desperately, he says, "Sorry." When he looks at our protagonist, he's smiling and calling him trash. She pushes the fool aside and asks our boy if he's okay, who says he's feeling really bad and passes out. She shouts for doctors. The simp tries to explain the story to the policeman, saying our protagonist was pretending. But everyone on the train said it was a lie, just because this guy was talking to his girlfriend. He didn't like it and beat up the boy. Everyone is on our boy's side. But waifu is even sad and thinks, "It's my fault he got involved in this." She's sad for involving our protagonist. The simp is there, explaining himself, "Don't arrest me. He provoked me, man." The guard says, "Enough. Everyone here is given testimony. The facts won't be denied. Why didn't you think straight while hitting him, huh? Do you think you have a lot of money? This is all your responsibility." He runs to Yanfei and says, "Yanfei, please help me. Say something. You know I'm not like this." But she pushes his hand away. He then says he's going to call his dad. His father answers and asks, "Where are you? What happened?" He tells the whole story while crying. Back to when the protagonist was waking up and said, "My mouth hurts a lot." Yanfei's on top of him asking, "How do you feel? Where does it hurt?" The protagonist knows is already bleeding, obviously. She asks, "Why is it bleeding? Did it hurt that much?" He says he's okay, just that she's too hot. "Nope, you didn't say that." Our protagonist gives her a slight stare and thinks she really is a goddess. Just look at her face. She says, "We're almost at the station. I'll take you to the hospital." Our boy says he's fine, but she informs him that he lost a tooth. He puts his hand on his face and thinks, "I'm glad I lost that tooth. I was afraid it was just scratches." He then says aloud, "I'll have to do some exams." It's clear he's planning to extort the cuckold. But waifu is standing thinking he's really a lunatic. How can he hit someone like that out of nowhere? What if something bad happened to him? As he was leaving the hospital, he hugs her and says, "Thank you, you truly are the school goddess. So beautiful, so kind." She even says, "I didn't even know you were from my school. Now I understand why you seem so familiar." The protagonist falls and says, "The goddess remembers me. I am honored." She awkwardly says, "Wow, even in this state you praise me." He tells her, "This makes me think I need to hit the gym more. Taking a beating alone is no problem, but what if this situation was to protect someone and I couldn't? I have to be tough." She agrees it's good he thinks that way, but says he needs to at least know how to defend himself. Our boy says that guy got what he deserved. Now he'll be detained for a day or two. Since his tooth fell out, this escalated the case to something criminal. That's life. Whoever walks by the river gets their feet wet. Our protagonist's life is pretty good in the hospital. The nurse informs him, "This is a private room just for you. The best medicines and treatments will be provided. You can rest assured." He thanks her but wonders, who could be spending so much money? Probably the simp's family. Our protagonist checks the system and sees he's already earned some points, 20,000 current assets. He understands that, even though he didn't pay for transportation or the hospital, it still counts as his expenses. That's the good life. Just then, someone enters. It's Yanfei again. She doesn't give the boy a second to recover. She comes all cute and returns his glasses. With just that, our protagonist is already imagining the wedding. He puts on his glasses to look at her. He thinks she's so thick with a good personality to match. She knows what's important. He was thinking he even has to thank the simp for this opportunity. She tells our protagonist that her father will arrive soon and asks, "Why don't you give me your number so we can keep in touch?" Our boy obviously gives it right away. Her family enters and she hugs her father all happily. Then another guy who arrives immediately says, "I'm sorry, young man." I'm Xiaogang's father. I didn't raise my son correctly. My wife and I came to apologize. Our protagonist feels awkward and says it's okay. He doesn't need anything. But the man comes running and tells him, "Don't move, kid. Stay still. You need to recover." The mother is embarrassed. "I spoiled him too much. Luckily, you didn't stoop to his level, but we'll compensate you." Our protagonist says, "It's partly my fault too. I know he kicked me, hit me, broke my tooth, made my nose bleed, stepped on me, but I cursed him, right?" The father recommends that he accepts the offer. It's a very high amount, and they can forget all this. Our protagonist takes a peek and asks how much. The father says, 800,000 yuan. Is that acceptable? Our protagonist is thinking, how many attribute points can I buy in the system of all this? The old man is confused, asking why he didn't react more. Does he want more? Our protagonist knows the situation he's in is good. The old man's afraid he'll report his son and ruin the guy's career. That's why he's doing everything to keep quiet, but he accepts, saying that's a great amount. Now I understand why Yanfei always said she had a very cool uncle, but the nervous guy asks, "But what? If you solve this just with money, you'll prove you're a father not so concerned about your son's education. I think it's important that your son understand that this behavior wasn't correct, or he'll ruin his own life." The guy is still receiving money yet wanting to preach morals. The reluctant father says, "All right, kid, I'll educate him better." Our protagonist is playing with fire and continues threatening that he doesn't want the money, saying, "I really don't need it. I just want him to understand that this behavior will hurt him and his family." The guy starts crying, saying, "I understand. When he's released, I'll bring him here to apologize." The wife says it's okay, and they both leave. Everyone is already in the hallway leaving. Asim's father greets the blonde's father, apologizing for the trouble his son caused. The guy says, "Relax. At least you came quickly and talked to the kid." Everyone leaves. At this moment, the father sees that his daughter isn't very happy and asks what's wrong. She says that Gang was a complete idiot doing that. Outside, the father says at least she's okay. And that guy will now disappear from her life. She says thank goodness and says, if that guy had the maturity of the boy he hit, things wouldn't be like this. The father says, "You seem to have a good opinion of the boy. You met him yesterday, right?" She blushes and says, "No, he's from the same school as me. I just felt embarrassed because he got beaten up because of me, and he seemed like an easygoing guy." "What do you think of him, Dad?" The father is thinking he seems like a mature and responsible boy. And here comes the father with the speech. "My daughter, at your age, boys who are mature like that have suffered a lot. Someone like him prefers success over feelings. I'm sure he has a bright future. But I don't know if he's ready for relationships." The daughter says okay, but he adds, "Well, I just want to remind you that relationships are exhausting. Be careful." She graciously tells him not to worry because she's not interested in dating. Meanwhile, our protagonist is all happy looking at the system. 387,000 points in the bank account. Best of all, the guy spent on him and now he has money to spend again. It's a double win. He falls on the bed and thinks, what do I do? Then he touches his glasses and says, right, I'm nearsighted and I'm toothless. Can this be resolved here? Seeing the options on the system, he remembers being teased about it in his past life. So he wonders, system, can you help with this? They're just seen like in the Matrix. When he opens his eyes are restored. Healthy status. He gets up from the bed, goes to the mirror, and takes off his glasses. Tada! So is this really how I am? Now the boy feels unstoppable. Eyes are called the mirrors of the soul. As a great wise master says, attractive eyes have a clean and beautiful structure with a lovely coloration. Just with this change, my attractiveness went up by 3 points. This shows that one function can influence the others. He receives a message from his friend saying, I really appreciate your help. I'm at the Confucius temple, how about we grab something to eat? He tells her, I'm still toothless. Bring me a book to read. She apologizes for forgetting he's toothless and says she'll bring a book later. The two are very happy. The protagonist made another flirt, saying that if he were there, she wouldn't even have time to eat everything. This protagonist is unstoppable. Her father is even there, wondering why this girl is all smiles. The next day, she really brought a book for him, but it's a really difficult and boring book, and she asks if he didn't like it. He says, it's not that I didn't like it, but why did you bring me such a book? She says she's kidding and hands him a copy of Solo Leveling. He looks and says, I knew you'd understand me. She tells him to get better soon and winks, but suddenly she approaches, and our boy backs away. She says that him taking off the glasses really improved his appearance a lot. The guy was already a bit convinced, and now he'll be even more. And he says, do you think that's all? I'll still improve so much and become even more handsome. She tells him to calm down. Are you thinking the glasses sealed your beauty? He says exactly. A cheeky one. She says that if that's the case, he should never put the seal on again and tells him to prepare because tomorrow she's bringing her father. Our protagonist thinks, why is she talking about her father? The next day, the simp shows up there saying, sorry man, I shouldn't have hit you. I couldn't control my emotions, but it's from the bottom of my heart. Please forgive me. Even the father and mother are moved. Our boy says, I accept your parents really love you, so don't worry them again. The guy is thinking, darn, he really wants to preach morals at me. A while later, a lawyer arrives for him to sign the paperwork and receive the $800,000. Look at this beautiful check. Take it, kid. I hope it never happens again. Our protagonist replies, you're very kind. The guy not only paid for the trip, the room, gave compensation, and everything else. A total of $1.15 million was spent. Now that he has the points, the priority is to raise his attributes. But he thinks he can't just spend everything on attributes. He still has to have money to eat and live. He falls on the bed and thinks, what if I don't spend anything? I just buy a comfortable little house, live comfortably for the rest of my life eating instant noodles. That's when the big friend comes back saying, we're here to see how you're doing. This girl is getting more inflated every time. The father comes and tells him to rest and says, she and I will travel soon, so I brought a little gift. Accept it here. Giving him a bundle of money. The father says it was a problem that involved his daughter too, so he wanted to compensate in some way. This time, our protagonist doesn't want the money and says, I don't want this money. She's a victim just like me. From whoever it is, I don't accept this money. The guy is already grabbing his shoulder. You really are a prodigy among young men. When you come back home, come visit us as a guest. Your grades must be incredible. Your college is close to hers, so I ask you to take care of her. She asked her father not to say these things. Our protagonist is confused, but says he's really at her university. She gets all excited, but he explains that he's in the humanities field, which usually doesn't get much recognition. Everyone is embarrassed. Our boy tells a sad story. When he was young, he thought grades didn't matter, followed a somewhat wrong path, and ended up in this situation. The father and daughter just watch. And our protagonist says that at least he learned from his mistakes, and now the only thing he can do is be better in college. The father says, you're right, kid. You can't be stuck in the past. The important thing is the direction you're going. And that money you received, what are you going to do with it? Start your business. Our boy says not now, but soon he'll become an entrepreneur and sell courses on how to make $800,000. The father congratulates him and leaves. But before he goes, the kid says to him, you're an amazing father. Even in 20 years, I'll remember. I want to be someone like you. The father thanks him and says goodbye, also saying he'll remember. And the friend also leaves happily. Now he's focused. He calls the nurse and says he wants to be discharged. It's time for him to start developing rapidly. He knows that in 2 years, real estate prices will go up a lot, and those who take advantage of the opportunity will be the next billionaires. Already on the bus, heading to the city of dreams, he arrives at the real estate agency, pulls out the black card, and asks about houses of 40 to 60 square meters near a school area that have been built in the last 2 years. The consultant says, there's this one that's priced great. Our king of negotiations says it's that one. His parents dreamed that he would buy a house, and look at him now, in his 20s already buying a house. It looks like he's going to buy 2 houses, but he's going to rent them both out just to cover his monthly expenses. This is the weakest capitalist. He already rented a deluxe presidential suite as soon as he received $100,000. He's all happy, thinking, finally, my new start has begun. At that moment, he realizes he's still toothless. He opens the system and says, restore my tooth. However, the system shows that the cost of the tooth exceeds the current amount, and his command cannot be executed. He needs to level up the system. Some skills are necessary to activate these effects. The user needs to possess at least 3 level 3 skills. First, he needs to reach level 2 since he just spent a lot of money and is full of points. He advances to level 2 and starts shining. He says it's as if his thoughts have become clearer and faster. His mind is overflowing with ideas. There was so much that he even fell to the ground. He gets up after a while with a headache because he absorbed too much information. Some skills like accounting, finance, and marketing show that knowledge is not just about how you think, but also about the accumulation of information you have. One influences the other, and now, by leveling up both, he will become part of the elite. When his phone rings, someone asks, is this student Han? You took a 15-day break, and today is the last day. If you don't return, you'll repeat the year. He tries to extend his break, saying he's still unwell and will return soon. Then he takes another look at the system and discovers that to upgrade an attribute from 70 to 79, it costs 200,000 points per level. And worse, to maximize it to level 5, it costs 10 million. For now, forget it. He has no chance of maximizing anything. He then sees that a new function has been unlocked by leveling up. Every time he spends money, there's a small chance he'll receive gifts related to his consumption. The items will be sent directly to his item bar. Sometime later, our protagonist had returned to college. The girls are all looking at him saying, "Wow, he's tall. Is he a new student?" Our hero is not feeling himself. He took advantage of the system, improved his nose, reduced something here, improved something there, and did a lot of facial adjustments. The e-girls are all crazy about him now. He goes to the principal's office to explain everything that happened. He explains that he was in the hospital for a few days, but he's fine now. He then hands over the hospital certificate. The principal asks if he was really in the hospital and if he brought the documents and money to pay for everything. Our hero says he brought everything while remembering that this guy wasn't a good person. At least he's kind of stupid, so dealing with him is simple. He thanks the teacher for his hard work and asks if he has any idea what the dormitory he'll be staying in is like. The teacher says it's a very lively place. Our protagonist hands over a medical request and says the doctor asked him to rest in a quiet place and we can't stay somewhere with too much commotion. The teacher takes it from him, looks at it, and says, "All right, I'll see if I can get a room for a maximum of 4 people for you, but the cost will be higher, kid." Our protagonist remembers that in his past life he stayed in the crazy dormitory 5, full of maniacs, and he doesn't want to go through that again. Especially now that he has the black card that makes life easy. The scene changes to our dear blonde receiving messages from our protagonist, letting her know he arrived at college. They talk for a bit, but nothing serious. He just stares at the system, thinking that his mother will be shocked by how much he's changed. The only problem is that he only has 40,000 left. It's time to at least buy something to eat. As he buys something to eat at the store and leaves, he sees a guy selling something on the ground, so he asks, "How much is this?" The guy says it's the Manual of Life, 66 Ways to Change Oneself, and it costs only 168 yuan. Our protagonist doesn't think it's worth that much and asks him to lower the price. The guy says he'll do it for 100. Let's say what he's really selling is what the OnlyFans girls sell for 99 cents, but in printed form. At that moment, the system activates. You've purchased a set of life manuals. Activating the gift system, a book suddenly appears in front of him. An ordinary scripture, read it sincerely and you'll increase your intelligence a bit. Our boy is happy because it's expensive to upgrade the attributes, so anything free is perfect. The chubby guy asks if he's okay, but the scene changes to a little later and he's entering a classroom. Some girls are already looking at him sideways. The professor up front says, "The last student arrived, go ahead and introduce yourself." Our protagonist remembers that in his past life he lacked confidence, so he felt embarrassed and everyone laughed at him. However, now with all this transformation, he arrives saying, "My name is Han Lai and I am from the city of flame, intensity, and fervor. My hometown is the city of dreams. Due to hospitalization, I was delayed, but I'm here." The girls are all impressed and the guys are angry, saying he's full of himself. But the teacher applauds and congratulates him. The girls chatting ask Ching Ching what she thinks of this guy. But our protagonist suddenly says, "If there are any single girls in this room, add me to your contacts because I'm easy to please and easy to play with. If you're interested, come talk to me." This guy is a social hazard. Someone stop him. The other guys in the room say he's a jerk who's confident just because he's good looking. The protagonist looks at them and thinks, "Look at those losers, all mad, but my target is you guys." He sits down and a second later, the flirty girls are already surrounding him. Everyone wants to be part of his group. They're all fighting until one pushes through and taps the table, saying, "I'm the class monitor, Shi Lu Ting. First, I need to collect the class fees from you, and then I'll add you to the group." It seems like our protagonist's plan was all just to get this girl to talk to him. She's been considered the goddess of this place for 3 years straight. But as wonderful as she is, he was deceived to the point where he almost had to drop out of college. But this time, he's going to be a great friend. Look at his mischievous face. He's up to something. He teases her, saying, "Do you want me to join the class group, or do you want my number because you're interested in the offer?" She gives him an angry look, saying it's just for him to join the class group because she doesn't care about the other option. He replies, "All right then," and asks her how much it costs to join the group. She realizes he's just teasing her and wonders if he's just like her. As you can see, this is going to be a very healthy relationship. She then says it costs 200 and he immediately pays, asking, "By the way, in this group, will you notify us of the activities?" She says, of course, 3 days in advance. Suddenly, there's a hand coming that I thought was going to slap the girls, but it's just a hug. She's hugging her friend and asking our protagonist, "Do you want me to add you to the class group?" He accepts the offer and she says, "My name is Yu Yum from the hometown of Jiangmen." Our protagonist says she's very charming and has a beautiful name. Then he looks at his phone and ignores her. She wonders if she did something wrong and tries to start a conversation, asking about the brand of his phone. She's never seen one like it before. He says it's a cheap and crappy phone but asks why she wants to know. The poor girl, confused, thinks he seems so rich with that attitude and asks why he uses that phone. Is it sentimental? He says he uses it because he's poor. She makes a face and leaves. What a weak, materialistic girl. But our protagonist remembers that in his past life, she used to manipulate him. She pretended to like him just to keep getting gifts, but she didn't really want anything. Our protagonist stands up, tired of it all, and the girls ask what he thinks of the class leader. Is she beautiful? He says he doesn't care about outward beauty. He wants to know about her inner beauty. She's just listening from the side. At night, everyone leaves to go up to the dormitories. People ask if he's not going with them, but he says no because his dorm is downstairs and it'll be faster to go down. We then see his roommates. One of them looks over and realizes our protagonist has arrived. He kicks him and says, "Get out of here, loser. Why are you just standing there?" But our protagonist is on point now too, just stares at the guy and says, "Get off my bed and move that chair." But the guy asks what will happen if he doesn't. Our protagonist just ignores him and goes up anyway. He gets up there, opens his backpack, and takes out a hammer. The blonde guy was going to say something, but his friend stops him. He says, "Or did the guy grab a hammer up there? What kind of normal person carries a hammer? It's better not to mess with this crazy guy." The guy sleeping in front of him is afraid of getting hit with a hammer in the middle of the night. The three of them are already leaving the dormitory, afraid of getting their heads smashed. Our protagonist asks where they're going. As they leave the room, they say they're going to see their girlfriends. The protagonist smiles like a psychopath and asks if they really have girlfriends. But then he runs off and our guy thinks he scared them too much, staring at the system, wondering if his decision-making is being influenced by his attributes. If that's the case, he has to work even harder to take advantage of it. The next day, there's a green-haired girl talking about our protagonist, saying, "Have you heard about that new guy? He seems to be from a billionaire family." The blonde guy recognizes him as the guy who's sleeping peacefully in the dorms while everyone else is suffering. Then we see the psychopath drinking her juice, and when she looks, she sees our protagonist with his athletic body. He was passing by when the girls greeted him from afar. One of them came up to him and asked, "I heard you're living on the top floor. How did you manage to get a spot there?" Our protagonist apparently doesn't want to talk much to her and says it was luck. The blonde guy is walking around with some other guys talking bad about him, saying, "That jerk, how does he come into the room causing a ruckus?" One guy sees them and warns our guy it's best not to mess with those guys. But when the blonde guy sees our protagonist, she gets scared and drops her cigarette. Now it's our protagonist and the milkmaids against the group of guys. Everyone is curious about why they're staring at each other, but our protagonist is calm while the poor guy is trembling. The guy with glasses greets him, while the blonde guy is already leaving. But our hero asks if they're coming back tonight. The blonde guy replies that unfortunately, he has to be with his girlfriend again. The girls are confused because they know each other. But the crazy girl realizes that our protagonist is treating the guys like dogs. He gets into the elevator and asks if they're not coming in while he looks and about 10 girls have arrived. And obviously the naughtiest one is in front of him. She wants to play his game, she charms him, and it works even on the reincarnated fool. As they exit the elevator, the scared guy comes up acting like a buddy, putting his hand on the protagonist's shoulder and saying to him, "You're afraid of yourself." Our protagonist removes his hand and says, "I don't know you, so don't touch me." The guy is surprised by this reaction, apologizes, and runs away. "Didn't you say you wanted to be friends with everyone in your speech?" But he enters the room saying he doesn't remember saying that. As he enters, the milkmaid invites them to sit together. The manipulator sits too. As our protagonist passes by, she stares at him and says, "You're right. Quality is better than quantity when it comes to friends." She asks if he wants to make friends. But he responds curtly that friends don't make a difference. Her friend laughs in her face, but after laughing, she stands up and asks for his phone number. Our guy says he'll give it to her, but he doesn't respond much. The psychopath asks, "So is that why you didn't answer my messages? You don't even pay attention to the class representative." Our protagonist makes an excuse, saying he was too busy and will respond later. She gets a little mad, thinking, what's so special about him? He's shameless. He may be handsome, but he's so arrogant. Better keep my distance from him. When she looks away, he's there, focused, making notes. Our protagonist realizes he has a problem. Even though he has a lot of knowledge now, it's hard to remember to use all of it. So his idea was to make these notes like a desperate person to organize his thoughts. The girls stared, thinking he's crazy, and then asked why he's studying so much when they haven't even gotten to that part yet. Our hero asks her if he can't study alone by any chance. She says he can, but wonders, if you were so smart, wouldn't you be in a humanities class? The protagonist says he was just demotivated before, but now he's ready to revolutionize his life. The two girls are impressed, and her friend points out, saying she knew he was some kind of genius, really different from the other guys. But our guy looks suspiciously at her because he knows her very well. In the past life, she used to play with a bunch of guys too, just looking for a rich one. And as soon as she found one, she got married, so he knows why she's doing this. So he asks the president, "Do you think I'm studying so eagerly?" She tries to guess his story, saying he was a troublemaker, but then in the last year, he lost his girlfriend to a rich guy, then he got beaten up, and then he decided to study so it wouldn't happen again. And that's why he avoids all the girls. Huh? Did I get it all right? She asks. Our protagonist laughs. Are you crazy or do you like writing fanfic? She's a bit embarrassed but doesn't respond. Our hero finds it strange that she became so shy. A little later, still timid, she says goodbye, saying she has some things to do. Our guy starts to think that maybe she really writes fanfic, and now he's curious because he doesn't remember that from his past life. But he thinks that even though she deceived him miserably, she was kind. Plus, she was a hardworking and disciplined girl in her own things. He thought she would do well after graduation, but apparently, she got a bad marriage. Still thinking about her being a writer, he remembers something. Once when he was in the computer room, he saw her receiving a message on the PC, someone asking for an update on a novel. And he begins to wonder, does she have two separate personalities? One for writing novels and one here for the university. The scoundrel says he now wants to reveal what she has beneath the disguise. In the next scene, we see her wanting to study, but she's just biting her pen thinking, my God, why can't I forget him? Look at how she looks at our protagonist. She's just worried that he might have noticed something when she hesitated to answer. Sometime later, the milkmaid asks him to wait for them to go to the cafeteria together. But he responds that he has other things to do and she goes off crying to her friend. At night, our boy won't have class tomorrow, so he'll want to buy a new computer and a new cell phone. The only problem is that now he really needs money. When he enters the room, the blonde guy stares at him and gets scared. Our guy throws his backpack on the bed and everyone thinks he's going to grab the hammer. But let's fast forward to the next day. He buys an iPhone, swipes his card to buy a laptop, and then goes and buys a SIM card. The purchase of the SIM card activated the effect of receiving a gift when spending. What he received was a Super SIM card. Automatic and instantaneous registration that cannot be monitored and cannot be tapped. Just by putting in someone's information, you already get their number, it can't be intercepted, and you can call any number without needing credit. Our boy already knows that if he uses this the right way, it will help a lot with his plans. In the room with the round girls, the milkmaid asks the president what she thinks of the protagonist already. In college, there are several rich guys, but his personality is quite unique. The president said she doesn't care about him since he's nothing special. Right at that moment, a message arrives. It's from our protagonist who already used the NASA card to get her number and sent the message, "Hello, monitor, it's Han Lee, but don't give my number to anyone." But then her friend says, "Did you add Han Lee to the college group?" She feels a little sad thinking that today he said not to give it to anyone, but he entered the messaging group. Changing scenes, our protagonist wants to find that forum where she posts her novels, but even after searching for a while, he can't find anything. Maybe that means she hasn't created it yet. Until after researching a lot, he finds her username there, but when he tries to be friends, she has a questionnaire before accepting friendship. Who am I? Who are you and why do you want to add me? Our boy writes what he thinks will convince her and goes back to the room. Again, the thick babe calls him to sit close, while the other girls in the room comment that she doesn't stop flirting. Even our protagonist finds it strange because as friendly as she wasn't that clingy. Looking at the president, he thinks, the bait has been cast, now it's just a matter of waiting for her to take it. Meanwhile, the big-haired guy in the classroom is boasting that his family owns 4 buildings worth millions. But our protagonist knows very well that he's not that rich, and that in reality, his family owns 5 or 6 houses amidst those buildings, and the buildings belong to the entire family. But with so many people involved, the profit isn't that great. You can't say the guy is poor, but he doesn't have as much as he thinks. In the eyes of the president, that guy over there is rich, but he's really dumb. Not very good looking and has no personality whatsoever, while the one who catches her attention the most, she looks at our protagonist and sees him as complete in every aspect. The big-haired guy notices that the protagonist is studying a lot and asks if he plans to pass the exam and why he's studying so much. Our guy says he hasn't decided yet, but he appreciates the concern. A guy points to his own face saying he'll eat half a kilo of crap from the milk girl if our protagonist passes. The guy is taking advantage of the situation to reveal his preference. Han Lee takes advantage of the situation and says, "You say that as if you're sure she's going to feed you." The milk girl feels awkward, tapping his shoulder, but he says he was just joking. She tells him to stop imitating the disgusting behavior of those guys. The pink-haired girl says she found it funny. The big-haired guy gets angry, thinking that when he says it, it's disgusting, but when he says it, it's funny. So he tells our protagonist that if he passes the exam, he'll let him live rent-free in his house for 3 years. Our protagonist just ignores it, thinking he's just seeking attention. Then he replies, "Thanks for the offer. I'll think about it." There's silence in the room and everyone thinks our hero didn't realize he was being humiliated, but in reality, he doesn't care. The president praises him, saying he's very calm and has a good aptitude for learning, and seeing him solve all those math problems, she believes he'll pass. Our protagonist is confused, thinking, is that crazy president praising me? Did something happen? The big-haired guy is kind of skeptical that our guy is really intelligent, so he says, "I doubt he's solving difficult problems," and grabs the notebook from him to see what he's writing. Without understanding anything, he says he wrote things, apparently. But then a smart girl comes and grabs the notebook, looks at it, and says, "The answers are correct, but why isn't there anything written here? No calculations, where's your process?" The protagonist takes the notebook back from her, saying those calculations are too easy, so he solved them mentally. Now he's hit the nail on the head, and they all come happily asking if he could give a private lesson in their room. The big-haired guy gets even more angry, especially when he sees the president talking to our protagonist. He then tries to salvage the rest of his ego, saying maybe with a decade of work, he'll be able to at least buy a little house or make the down payment. If you need a place to rent, just let me know. My family has some houses. The milk girl is really a gold digger and wonders if Hanley really has money. While the psycho president is eager to see Hanley humiliated and defeated. But out of nowhere, the protagonist starts laughing in the big-haired guy's face and says, "What kind of luxurious house does your family have?" The guy says all the houses of his family are incredible and luxurious. But now he's going to be caught in the lie because our guy tells him, "Don't tell me you consider the collective contribution of all the people in your family to that building as your property, do you?" The guy is somewhat embarrassed and says what our protagonist is saying doesn't make sense. And the people in the classroom want to know what's going on. The protagonist says to him, "Building number 4 in Yangpu District, a small building with an elevator and 4 apartments per floor. Over the last 3 generations, your family has managed to buy 8 of them, but you live in 2 and share the profit. I'm not trying to belittle you, but does anyone here know which of the Yangpu properties is considered extremely luxurious in the real estate market?" The protagonist puts on a smug look and says, "I find it a bit strange that you're acting all high and mighty at the expense of 3 generations of your family." Just then, the teacher enters the room and there's silence. The wicked waifu there is looking at the big-haired guy and thinking he's a loser because he didn't respond at all. And she's obviously impressed by how the protagonist reacted to the situation. She's already got her pen in her mouth thinking she's going to write a novel now about a dominant CEO and use him as a model. But she's having to try to calm down because throughout the entire class, she just wants to keep looking at our reincarnated friend. The end of the class arrives, that friend calls again to go to the cafeteria. But our protagonist says the cafeteria is too expensive. They can't just be spending money there. Just then, he receives a message on his phone and she shouts, "Stop lying, you have a new phone there and can't buy a snack at the cafeteria." He says that's exactly why, since he spent all of his money on the phone and now he's broke. Biting with anger, she tells him to hurry up, she'll pay for everything. Our guy warns that he won't pay her back. She replies that it doesn't matter, and let's just go. Hanley is impressed with how inflated she is. She grabs him by the wrist to take him away and he says, "All right, when it comes to living off others, I'm good at that too." The other girls laughed and she's thinking, living off others? Then she pinches him, asking what he means by that. He replies, "Hey, it's no big deal. I just said that because I usually eat at regular cafeterias." But she's feeling insecure, thinking he believes she's a gold digger. The girl with green hair says, "Relax, I'll pay for your things, it's okay." The protagonist finds it strange, both of them seem very interested in him. But he's more concerned about how he's going to make money. The girl with green hair wants the purest love possible and wants to get married soon, so it's not going to work. And the one on the right wants to marry a rich guy, so that's also not going to work. For him, for now, it's better to just chill. The short-haired one thinks our protagonist is definitely a rich guy to be acting so disinterested around beautiful women. He must have a lot of them around him. And if that's the case, she needs to get him. As long as his family is rich in the end, it's worth it. She's about to say something, but the girl with green hair cuts in again and says, "You bought a bunch of new skincare products. Let me pay for him." She feels a little embarrassed because in reality, she didn't buy anything, it was all a gift from an admirer. So she says she can pay for him, but the girl with green hair says it's okay, but she shouldn't come crying afterward. On the way, they're all interested in him, asking lots of questions. Why did you change your phone? Have you ever been in a relationship? Why haven't you been in one? What kind of woman do you like? What kind of woman do you not like? The other guys are all thinking he's a damn lucky guy. They keep insisting until he responds, "The type of woman I like doesn't need to be exceptionally beautiful, but she needs to be kind and share the same values as me and be a good person to be around." They think it's understandable why he's alone. He's very traditional and demanding. The protagonist asks them, "What quality do you think makes a woman the best?" The milk girl says she has no idea, but in reality, she's thinking, "I'm all inflated and mine are huge." That's what guys like, right? The green-haired girl says what matters is what you like, but she's thinking, "Damn, the president is beautiful and the other one is just inflated. I'll have to find another way to win this." The president isn't liking this joke. She's not even getting involved, but she's being dragged into the comparison. A little while later, everyone's at the cafeteria eating. Hamley shows up with cake for everyone. They're impressed since that's quite expensive. He tells them to enjoy it. While the president is staring at a giant strawberry, he tells her to enjoy it a lot. He got the flavor she likes. After all, he was her simp in the past life. The inflated girl asks why he spent so much money on them. He says it's okay since they also spent a lot on him, practically throwing a banquet for the protagonist. The girls are all around the protagonist, and the two of them are always wanting to talk to him. From afar, the confused president wonders, both of them are beautiful, so why isn't he doing anything? Our guy offers the last tangerine to her, but she says she doesn't want it. Obviously, this rascal is only interested in her and is thinking, "You messed with me so much in the past. How am I going to make you pay for it?" Things are just getting started. Time passed, and our protagonist continued exercising, studying, planning everything, and living his routine. And strangely, in the meantime, he became a celebrity in the dorm, the guy chased by a bunch of thick babes. He sees a message in the college group where people are organizing a trip to the zoo. He knows his popularity lately is only increasing. Then he receives a message from the president saying they're going to the safari park tomorrow. But he doesn't need to worry because she already paid for his trip. This is the first time I'm spending money on a man. Our protagonist, realizing she's upset, thinks, "I'll talk to Lil Cucumber," which is actually her pen name on the site where she posts her works. During this time, he's been spending money as her supporter on the site. And for the first time, he receives a message from her saying, "Thank you for the donation. I'm touched." Our guy thinks she finally took the bait, but for now, he needs to confirm that it's her. He takes advantage of this response to ask for her number, if there's any readers group, and if she's planning to release any new work. And depending on the answer he gets to any of these three questions, he'll be sure it's her. And with that, he confirms her identity. The next chapter begins with everyone going to the safari. Our protagonist arrives at the subway station, and the girls are already greeting him. The president arrives looking all cute, saying she'll buy tickets for everyone. And the guys are thinking her legs are amazing. But our guy, on the other hand, thinks those are just stick legs. But he's sneaky, and he already remembers that in his past life, she started going to the gym and got really thick. The rascal is just thinking her body is going to be graceful. A while later, one of the friends grabs his arm, and the other one grabs his arm too. The guy is surrounded. He finds it confusing because in his past life, both of them ignored him. But he doesn't want to get involved in all this silly romance stuff. He crouches down, runs out, saying he needs to go to the bathroom. A while later, they've already arrived at the safari. But our protagonist is alone while the girls are all sending messages asking where he is, but he's not in the mood to respond. Meanwhile, the president is also mad because he ran away without saying anything. And where is he? Until a message from him arrives asking for help. She thinks him asking me for help. I won't respond, but she takes a look and asks what's wrong. He tells her he has a stomachache and no toilet paper. She apologizes, but unfortunately can't go into the men's bathroom. Thinking he finally fell into her hands, but he says, "Ask the janitor, please." She tells him that if he wants a favor, he has to show the right attitude and beg for it. He tells her to hurry up, he's begging. She tells him that if he compliments her properly, she'll help, and she thinks, if he calls me adorable and wonderful little fairy, I'll help him. But the protagonist calls her mommy, madame, and dear. She already gets angry thinking, damn, the heavens sent me this guy here to annoy me. That's why I have no interest in him. Until suddenly, guess who shows up? He was just playing with her heart. This is the ultimate strategy. A love story has to evoke emotions. It can't be a stagnant river. You make the woman frustrated and angry and then give her a mega surprise. This creates a contrast that generates emotional fluctuations. The scoundrel is leveling up that system just to pick up women and even brought ice cream for her. He tells her to hurry up and grab the big ice cream he took a long time to buy, and also that he needs to use the bathroom because he's in a rush. She looks to the side and says, if you're in a hurry, just go. I don't want you here. You disgusting. The protagonist finds it funny to see her embarrassed. He takes the ice cream and says that if she doesn't eat it, he'll have to force feed her. In some states, this is considered a crime. They chat for a bit, and she's just giggling and giving him some side glances, thinking that she'd be lying if she said she didn't have any positive feelings, and in this case, she might give him a chance. It's at this moment that his system shows. You have acquired the flirting skill level 1. Han Li, not wanting to miss the chance, immediately upgrades it with 180,000 points. He wants to know what effect he'll have with communication, persuasion, and flirting, all at level 3. He playfully messes around with the ice cream, but right then a child passes by and bumps into her. She falls onto our protagonist's belly, feeling embarrassed and moving away, but suddenly she's back sitting next to him. They keep talking until the short-haired friend sees the two sitting on the bench there. She thinks, so that's why he wasn't responding to my messages, because he's with her. But the fanfic writer comes running over and hugs her friend, creating a romantic scene. Our protagonist loves this scene. A little later, they're walking down Snack Street to grab some snacks. The big friend puts on some rabbit ears and asks if she looks cute. Our guy says yes and asks about the other two friends. She says they went for a stroll to buy some stuff. Han Li asks why she didn't go with them. She says she didn't go because otherwise he would be left alone. Then she grabs his arm, calling him to have some fun. They hang out in the park until at one point she sees a necklace. And our protagonist remembers that in his past life he gave her the same necklace, and she hated it. But now she's lying, saying she finds it wonderful. So she suggests they go take a look. She's all interested, but poor guy only remembers that he had to save up for a long time to buy it for her, and he never even saw her wearing it. He may not have any more interest in her, but he finds it strange that she's so in love with this item. He finds it funny and says he'll buy it for her, already telling the receptionist to keep it as a gift from him to his friend. In his mind, this is the last time he'll give a gift as a simp. After this purchase, everything will change. She seems very happy to receive this gift and wants to show it to her friends. But Han Li says it's better not to because it could cause discord. When the protagonist makes the purchase, he receives a pet collar from the system that gives 50 obedience and 50 happiness, and he wonders what to do with it. He thinks it would be good if he were raising a husky, but that's not the case. She then asks him to put it around her neck, and he does. She's very happy, but everyone outside can see it, and the president is feeling isolated. The protagonist thinks, Lu Cheng, right at a time like this? What if she misunderstands? But wait, why am I blaming myself? I have nothing to do with her. And I'm more interested in her online version. I couldn't care less about this offline one. He then approaches her and asks how she's doing. The green-haired one says they were getting ready to leave, but saw that he was busy with something. With that, the park outing ends and he's back home. Han Li is all happy when he talks to the president online but doesn't want to talk to her in person. He really is the king of 2D. On the app, he asks her when she's going to release a new book. She says it will take a little longer. She's been very frustrated lately with her content and isn't happy with the result. The protagonist, with his evolved writing talents, decides to give her some constructive criticism and says she needs to improve especially her amateur style and character development logic. She's impressed that he's actually right. These are my problems. Could he really read everything and be my fan? She thanks him for his words and asks, could you give me more specific feedback on how I can correct this? Now the protagonist feels confident and says, you're lucky that in this life, I'm an expert. He sends a text with a bunch of tips on how to improve her story. Seeing all that, she thinks it will be difficult to correct, but everything he said is completely correct. Our guy already thinks he can now cooperate with her to start the revenge operation. With that, they spend almost the entire night talking with him, giving several tips on how to improve. And to start cooperation with her after talking for a while, he says he has an idea. He always wanted to write a story about a dominant CEO who has a wife with an intense romance. Obviously, he said this because he knows it's exactly the type of story she wants to write. He explains everything and asks if she would like to write this story with him. She ponders and the story advances to the next day, when they meet at the bookstore and she's still mad at him because of the necklace incident. Then she goes to the phone to vent with him, but she doesn't know, obviously. The days go by with him talking all day and all night about the book. A few days later, we see our protagonist eating but more interested in the psychopath's work on his phone, until a new face appears. His bald friend says, that's the beauty of international studies, she's wonderful. His partner says, stick here with us and come meet the guys from my dorm. She looks at the table and the scene changes with everyone talking. His friend introduces her, saying, this is Paige, the most beautiful and popular in the whole university. The protagonist feels embarrassed for her until the guy introduces him. This is Han Li, the king of the girls. Our protagonist interrupts the guy and says he'll introduce himself. Pleasure, I'm Han Li. Paige's friend seems to recognize the name and says, I've heard that name before. Aren't you the guy who's followed around by two beautiful girls every day? They even compete to see who gets to feed you, don't they? Our guy feels exposed and thinks, damn, this fame I'm gaining is ruining me. His friends are even pressed, asking him to teach them how to do it. Meanwhile, Paige tells them to order something to eat soon. The protagonist looks at her while thinking, in my past life, I only saw her a few times from afar. So the guy from my dorm is in the same class as her. If I'm not mistaken, she's extremely rich. It's interesting to see that she's willing to share the table with us commoners. Her personality is very different from the rumors. She says she can't drink much but will try to keep up. Our guy says her eyes are very different. She explains that they come from her mother, who came from afar. Our protagonist says they are uniquely wonderful. They continue this conversation until his friend nudges him and says, look who's over there. It's the president, who already notices the presence of our protagonist. The two recognize each other. The hottest girl in the university's human relations against the hottest girl in the university's finance. It's an intense duel. The president wants to know why the protagonist is sitting here with her. She then asks our guy what was going on there and says she was waiting for a message from him. He replies, I was with my dorm friends until some of their friends showed up, nothing special. But then his friend says, hey waiter, bring another chair for one more person to sit. Our protagonist gives him a stare and the friend thinks, did I do something wrong? Then the president sits down, but he says, we've been eating for a while and there's only leftovers here. Why don't you order something to eat and take it home? In other words, he said, get out of here. The president, who's not naive, understands and gets up, saying, okay, I understand. I'm leaving so I don't bother you guys. But the protagonist doesn't seem to care about her leaving. But our guy, who by this point I'm starting to think is a psychopath, got up and went to the bathroom to talk to her on his secret account. He asks if she's okay, what happened. She said he has no idea and explains, I went to sit with my classmate friend that I mentioned, but he just ignored me and didn't even want me to sit with him. Sometimes he treats me well, and sometimes he treats me badly. The protagonist says he's just playing hot and cold with you and teasing you all the time, don't fall for it. She says it must be that, and that's why she left without looking back. From now on, she won't care about him anymore. Hanley returns to the table and says he's leaving. He throws his wallet on the table and tells his friend, you pay the bill later, and if anything happens, let me know. Meanwhile, the president is in line, texting that she's angry and wants to eat fried rice. At that moment, our protagonist appears with the fried rice already bought and says to her, like in this video, we've come to the end of another one, my dudes. As always, if it goes well on the channel, I'll bring part 2, so activate the notification bell to not miss it. Peace out.